Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. So today I'm going to talk about my predictions for the NL East. Also, we just hit 300 subscribers. I just want to say thank you to all of you for your support. We are now on the road to 400 subscribers. If you are new here today and you're looking for more baseball insight, feel free to subscribe down below. If you like today's video, leave me a thumbs up. If not, leave me a thumbs down. And also, leave a comment at the end. Tell me what you think. Let's start with the Miami Marlins. The Marlins were pretty terrible last year, but they did stay busy this offseason. They traded for Jonathan Villar, they signed outfielders Corey Dickerson and Matt Joyce, they signed catcher Francisco Cervelli, relievers Brandon Kinsler and Yimi Garcia, and they also claimed Jesus Aguilar off waivers. So as for the offense, I mentioned that they signed Corey Dickerson, they have Jonathan Villar, they got Jesus Aguilar, so there are some okay pieces in that lineup, but I don't really see that offense doing too much this year, especially in an NL East division that has a lot of good pitching. Let's talk about that pitching. Other than Sandy Alcantara, who had an ERA under 4 last year with almost 200 innings pitched, there really isn't much else after him. There is Caleb Smith, but there's not really much after him. The bullpen, I don't think, is going to be too bad this year. They brought in Brandon Kinsler, who was on the Cubs last year. He had a really good year. And Yimi Garcia, who also pitched really well for the Dodgers last year. Garcia is expected to be one of the setup men this year, while Kinsler is expected to be the closer this year. My prediction for the Marlins this year is they improve by 10 games. They win 67 games and lose 95, but that will only be good enough for 5th place. Next up, I have the Philadelphia Phillies. The Phillies had a pretty good offseason, starting with bringing on Joe Girardi as the manager. They signed Zach Wheeler, Didi Gregorius. They had a decent offseason. And don't forget, they also signed Francisco Liriano, Bud Norris, and Neil Walker to minor league contracts. The offense should be pretty good this year. With Andrew McCutchen back healthy after an ACL tear last year, he will be going right back into that leadoff spot, and that's a great leadoff hitter to have in your lineup. But after him, you got guys like Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto, Rhys Hoskins, Didi Gregorius. That's going to be a really good offense this year. But the pitching is still a bit of a question mark to me. They signed Zach Wheeler to a pretty big contract this past offseason, so you're going to have Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler atop that rotation, with Jake Arrieta coming after them. I do think Zach Wheeler is past his injuries from before, but he's always going to be a question mark in my opinion. But as for Jake Arrieta, how much does this guy have left? He had some elbow problems last year, but I think he's going to be probably fully healthy this year. But again, how much does this guy have left? And after that, the Phillies don't really have a clear-cut name that can step up after Arrieta. As for the bullpen, they're not going to have David Robertson this entire year, so it's going to be interesting to see how that bullpen holds up this year. Look out for guys like Francisco Liriano and Bud Norris. Liriano was pretty good last year, and Bud Norris just a couple of years ago was pretty good until he hurt his elbow and ended up sitting out the last couple of years. Norris could end up being a feel-good story this year, and who knows, he could emerge as someone that can really help the Phillies this year. But overall, I still think that bullpen is a question mark. My prediction for the Phillies this year is they improve by 5 games from last year, finishing with an 86-76 record, but that's only going to be good enough for a 4th place finish in a very competitive NL East. Next up, I have the defending champs, the Washington Nationals. The Nationals had a pretty eventful offseason. They did have a huge loss in Anthony Rendon, but they were able to re-sign Steven Strasburg long-term. They did sign reliever Will Harris, Starlin Castro, Eric Thames, but they're also bringing back guys like Daniel Hudson, Howie Kendrick, Yan Gomes, Asdrubal Cabrera. With the loss of Anthony Rendon, that offense will take a bit of a hit. This was a 6-win player for the Nationals last year. But I think they're going to be able to make up for it a little bit. They still have MVP candidate Juan Soto. They have Trea Turner, who just keeps getting better. But then you got other guys in that lineup like Adam Eaton, Howie Kendrick, Eric Thames, Asdrubal Cabrera. That offense could still be pretty decent this year. But the pitching is what's going to be a strength for the Nationals this year. But I do worry about the workload that Max Scherzer, Steven Strasburg had last year. Max Scherzer was dealing with some neck problems last year, some back problems. Steven Strasburg threw the most innings out of his career last year. And then guys like Patrick Corbin and Anibal Sanchez had long runs in the postseason last year. Will this group be able to duplicate another effective season? As for the bullpen, Sean Doolittle did have his ups and downs last year, but they did sign Will Harris. He was a really good setup man for the Astros last year. Along with Tanner Rainey, this bullpen could be pretty good. However, in the end, I do see the Nationals taking a step back this year. I do see them finishing with an 88-74 record, which would be only good enough for 3rd place in the NL East. Next up, I have the New York Mets. The Mets are that one team every year that you want to pick, and they just let you down every single year. This year, the Mets make it happen, and they put it together. They had a decent offseason. They brought in Dellin Betances, Rick Porcello, Michael Wacha, Jake Marisnick. I think the offense is going to be pretty good this year. Pete Alonso had a monster year in his rookie year. Guys like Jeff McNeil and JD Davis, they get on base really well. Michael Conforto is still a very productive hitter. Robinson Cano, he's getting older, but this guy can still hit. And look out for guys like Jed Lowry and Yoenis Cespedes who are coming back from injury this year. As for the pitching, this is what's going to carry the Mets this year. You have Cy Young winner Jacob deGrom. Behind him, Noah Syndergaard, Marcus Stroman, Rick Porcello. Rick Porcello did have a down year with the Red Sox last year, but this guy eats innings, and I think he's going to be better in the National League. And then there's still Steven Matz, and they signed Michael Wacha. The bullpen was terrible last year for the Mets. Edwin Diaz and Jeurys Familia had awful years last year, but I see those two having a bounce-back year. Seth Lugo had a breakout year last year, and if Dellin Betances can be healthy this year, that bullpen could be nasty. My prediction for the Mets this year is that they finish 92-70, which will be good enough for second place in the NL East. And finally, the defending NL East champs, the Atlanta Braves. While they weren't able to bring back Josh Donaldson, they still had a pretty decent offseason. They brought in Marcell Ozuna, Cole Hamels, Will Smith, Travis DeArnold. They also brought in Felix Hernandez. While Josh Donaldson ended up signing with the Twins this past offseason, I still think that offense is really good. There's possible MVP candidate Ronald Acuna Jr., Ozzie Albies, Freddie Freeman. Now they have Marcell Ozuna on board. And if Dansby Swanson can take another step forward this year, that offense could be really good. As for the pitching, they did lose Julio Teheran, but I still think that rotation is going to be pretty good. They got Mike Soroka, who was really good last year. They signed Cole Hamels, Max Fried. Those three can easily lead that rotation back to the postseason. And then there's also Felix Hernandez. This guy has kind of lost his way the last couple of years, but if he can tap into that old King Felix a little bit, I think he could have a pretty decent season with the Braves. And then with the addition of Will Smith and then Mark Melancon closing out games, I see that bullpen being pretty good this year. My prediction for the Braves this year is they finish with a 95-67 record, which will be good enough for first place, and they will repeat as the NL East champions. But that's just my opinion. Tell me what you think down below in the comments. How do you think the NL East will shape up this year? If you like today's video, leave me a thumbs up. If not, leave me a thumbs down. And if you are looking for more baseball insight, feel free to subscribe down below. As always, have a great day. Thanks for watching today, and I'll talk to you next time.